All right, Tim, Danny, welcome to my podcast studio. It's a rare opportunity to do an in-studio podcast. Earlier today, we were checking out your 3D printed house you did with Andrey Rudenko up in Brenham, Texas. And since you guys are so close, we figured why not stop by over here, do the podcast. We got the sound, the lights. So thank you guys for letting me stop by and for coming today to do this episode.
Yeah, thanks for coming. It was fun. It's been fun so far. Yeah, I feel this is like just kind of such a coincidence you're in Houston now.
Yeah, did you know?
No, I had no idea. I mean, I've been following the podcast forever, and I had no idea you were in Houston. So
I don't like to broadcast the location necessarily, but
right.
yeah, I'm here, and I had no idea you guys existed either until a few days ago. You finally started posting pictures of the home you printed. I saw pictures on some other channels, but people were being hush-hush. I was like, who did this? Come on. They just told me Andre, who is very secretive. Maybe we can get into that later. But how did you guys first come to the idea you wanted to 3D print houses, and how did you guys link up together?
So I've been following this for probably 7 or 8 years. And so I've always been interested in kind of alternative architecture. And I had, built traditional homes, and then, we built earth bag houses and a Quonset hut, house that isn't finished yet. But I've always been kind of interested in finding kind of different ways to do it, and ways to save money really has been my primary focus. So I started following this a long time ago, and when it first came out, I wasn't really seeing the cost savings on it.
Mm-hmm.
And just following, just kind of doing the math of like what the material costs would be, and how you could put together a system that could kind of leverage the kind of lower material costs to actually build something kind of cheaper than you could do it traditionally. And it got to this point where I thought, this might be possible, but the only way to know would be to build a house, because the information that was out there, I felt like it was filtered through so many different channels. It was hard to get a really strong handle on it. And so the only way to do it would be to do it, right? So then you have to find the right partner to do it with you. And I started speaking to Andre a few years ago, just kind of exploring that, kind of system. And he had kind of a similar bent as I did, which was, let's just build it and see kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what he does is he puts together his own machinery, and so it's like we could work together and put together, he could put together a machine specifically for us, like kind of geared towards what we, wanted to accomplish. So we started talking about that a while back, and it just kind of kept building momentum from there. But there just came a point where it was just like, if we're going to do it, we just got to do it. So I went out and bought some land, got a few people together to, raise a little bit of money to kind of build this pilot project. And then, we've raised a little bit more money to get into our next bigger projects after that.
And how did you get involved, Danny?
Well, I was actually looking for a change of pace earlier this year, and Tim and his team at Hive, they said they needed a handsome, strong back individual who could, work through the good times and the bad, and so I joined up with Tim and David in February, I guess, and just looking to do something a little different. And as soon as we started working on it and met Andre, saw the technology and saw the printing and possibilities, it really just kind of caught me. So I've kind of just been here since, and this is the direction I think that I want to be in here with these guys.
So before this, you were building other kinds of alternative homes, and what were you doing?
Actually, an organizational psychologist.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So this is quite a bit of a pivot for me, but this being out in the outdoors and working with my hands again, at 45, who doesn't want to do that, right? It's been a lot of fun. It's been very rewarding. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So to take it on a little tangent, organizational psychology is an interesting perspective I haven't ever really heard about as it applies to a 3D printed construction site. So how are you looking at the way, because I guess this technology is changing the way that you're building, so it does require reorganization and figuring out optimal methods and the team. So how does the organizational psychology apply to that on the job site?
Well, we're still relatively small, so a lot of the constructs and the concepts that we work with in the IO world really apply to larger organizations. Just to employing statistics and psychometrics. We're really dealing with samples of larger populations.
Sure.
We're making inferences about things and trying to extrapolate that to like a broader company size. So something that wouldn't necessarily transfer one to one here in a smaller organization, but there are concepts that we can apply when we're talking about scaling up and growing. Some of those things will come to bear, but right now it's really just about it's a lot of hands-on right now. So the organizational psych part is not really so much of a factor. I don't know. Tim may disagree.
I don't know how much time we had to think about
as
it.
Much time as we.
Yeah, I mean we had. I meant here. Just like think about it throughout this project. I mean,
I get it now.
Our deal was like we did this with three people. Sometimes we had a fourth person out there, but it was me and Danny and Andre for the most part. Andre's son helped out a little bit.
Nice.
But I mean it was just like it was a tough process. To build that whole big house. Like we're moving the sand ourselves and we're feeding the mixers and all that good stuff and. Getting the machine, keeping the machine working. I mean, it was a real process, and we learned so much. Andre knows so much. He was able to kind of transfer a lot of that knowledge to us. We knew a lot of things about a building that I think helped Andre kind of figure out how to do, a bigger house like this. And so we really did. It was just a cool project, but it took like a lot of like. There were very few people that would have stuck with us the whole way like Danny did. I mean, they were all-night shifts. I mean, we were printing all night sometimes. We were printing all day at 108-degree heat, and there was it takes a unique personality to kind of stick it through all that stuff.
Yeah, it's true, and people don't think about that until they got the printer on the site. It seems like it's robotics makes everything easy, but somebody has to make the robot work too.
Yeah, you have to make the robot work. You got to get the materials into the robot. So there's still some labor involved. Less of it. I mean, like I say, when you look at a crew of framers come in, will typically come in with a small army of people.
Yeah.
Or when they lay the foundation, they'll come in with they'll knock it out quick, but they'll come in with 20 people. And so to be able to do it with 3 people is, I think, a promising avenue. So the robot is doing most of the work. The people are actually having to, like I said, get the materials to the robot, make sure that it's working, and fix everything that's going wrong and things like that.
Yeah, another really promising aspect is even though Andre's been doing it for so many years, a leading expert, I'm sure he was still learning new things on your project as well.
I mean, everything changes no matter depending on the geography and the weather.
So true.
Andre came. We were pretty much started on a blank slate as far as the materials go. I mean, we know it's going to be concrete, but we figured out the mix together on site. Using kind of Andre's knowledge on it. But he didn't come with a formula at all. I mean, we sat down and figured out. We started with the classic, 1 part cement, 2 part sand formula, and we kind of modified it from there. And there was we didn't come with like a book of knowledge or, we have a partner in our business that has like 90 patents in concrete, so he's a great resource for it. It's Green Cement out of Jewett. It's a great company, and they actually print with a fly ash, so it's got Posi-Slag. And we were able to use that as a 25% cement replacement, which, it's a green product, so you get that, but it also adds some fluidity and some strength to the mix. So that was cool. And it's funny when we have an architect that's worked with some other 3D printing companies, and they came down and looked at it, and they said, we're using fly ash in this. And it was like, sure, yeah, we have this cool company. And they said that other companies said they can't use fly ash for some reason. And I never really got that because it worked great with our mix.
Yeah, I thought most mixes had fly ash in them, but everything's changing so quickly. You never know. So you printed this home. What do you see the mature version of Hive growing into? What's the product you're selling, the market you're serving?
Sure. So we have 2 projects lined up after this. We're going to do 10 kind of smaller rental units in Round Top, Texas, which is a small town near Brenham. And then we're going to do this cool affordable housing village in Marfa, Texas, which is kind of a tourist town in the desert out here in Texas.
Yeah, nice.
And the one kind of neat thing about the way we're set up with both kind of our systems is we're very portable. So like our goal and dream is to be able to roll in with 3, 4, or 5 people and 2 trailers and build a house in 90 days. That's what we're trying to get to. So instead of like kind of massive build outs and projects that do everything on this big production scale, we're able to go into areas that don't necessarily justify a huge 100 house development or 200 house development. So many of those areas are just so housing starved right now because they don't get those production build economics. So if you go to all these small towns throughout Texas and throughout the country, or even big cities, that the areas don't justify a big home builder coming in and building hundreds of homes and getting those economics. Your only choices are to build a custom home in those places, and that's costing $250 to $300 a square foot.
Yeah,
very expensive, $700,000-$800,000 houses. So that you have all these towns that a lot of them have cool stuff going on, like a beautiful location or a good tourist industry, or even some just unique industry to that town. There's nowhere for the people to live because they can't get the production builders to come in there, and they can't afford the $800,000-$900,000 houses because there's nowhere for their teachers and their police officers to actually live. So we think that with how portable we are, that's a good niche for us. So our kind of, like I said, our goal is to be able to get a crew of 4 or 5 people together to be able to build a house soup to nuts. We're looking at different roofing systems and things like that next to be able to kind of drop onto our 3D printed structures. That's kind of our near-term goal is to get to that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and you'd be unlocking the value of some land that was previously underdeveloped or maybe didn't have the same kind of options available. One thing you're doing I haven't seen before, at least in person, is foamcrete in the walls. Danny, can you talk about why you guys made that decision and how it's advantageous for you?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons, actually. One of the challenges that I think a lot of people are facing in printing 3D homes is how do you insulate and provide some structural integrity. And this is actually, I think, something that Andrey had been kicking around for a while. But the idea of foamcrete is that we're able to provide great insulation while at the same time also providing some really good structural integrity for the walls. And we're not having to compromise too much with things like in a traditional home where you're going to have studs, you're going to have thermal bridging there. We have none of that. We have it's a monolithic construction throughout the wall, so it's very uniform, it's very consistent, and it's easy to make. So it's also helped us keep our costs down.
Yeah.
So and it's so far from what we've seen, it's been we've been really happy with the results so far.
It seems like the kind of solution you could eventually attach to the printer, maybe, and even have the printer.
Yeah, that's I hadn't thought about that.
After spending several weeks holding that hose and filling those walls, that sounds great to me. Yeah, so something like that would be awesome.
Yeah. Did you have something? You seemed like you had something you were on the tip of your tongue.
No, well, just that the cost of the foamcrete's another big advantage of it. I mean, I think it's tracking a little lower than what it would cost to actually fill those walls with some kind of sprayed insulation or something like that. So your cost is lower. You get the structure and you get the insulation, so that's kind of what we're shooting for with it.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned in some ways you over-engineered potentially the building you did now, so maybe there's some cost-cutting potential there as well.
Yeah, there is. Like we did a lot of things. Just we want to make sure that this house is going to be there in 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Just be not going to have a wall fall down or something like that. So we can definitely dial back. The amount of rebar we used. We used some metal, supports on the inside, kind of overbuilt. I mean, we have these big 12-inch thick, anchor bolts for the roof. You don't need all that necessarily. Our structural engineer says we don't need it. He kept telling us, like, guys, it's just a roof. You don't need to support, 10 stories on top of this thing. But we really want to kind of overdo it on this one just because we want to make sure that our first one, is a real rock solid house.
Yeah, a big advantage you had, because good planning, is building in a location you didn't need permits for the city, or you didn't need a bunch of people to check off and give you permission. The beautiful thing about Texas, it's those areas you're able to just do what you want on your land. So I guess it'll be a good example. Without that, there would be no way to see how long a 3D printed house lasts if you can't get a permit to build it there. So now, hopefully the permitting department can see what you did and take it more seriously.
Yeah, that's our hope, especially as we're moving into kind of some of the smaller towns that have this real desperate need for housing. A lot of them have been really open and willing to work with us, you know, on a more like, you know, conversational and unique level with the building department, which is often just one person, you know, so like really get them comfortable with it. We're going to keep this house. I mean, people can go spend the night in it, you know, you really get a feel for it, you know, and show that, hey, this is a solid house. You don't have to worry about some structural problem or something like that.
Yeah, certainly. The architect who designed it, who did you hire for that?
So this one's done by my friend Bradley Hurtis at Ordinary Architecture Group. He's actually a small partner in our business as well. So as we're doing these other projects, we have kind of Bradley in-house, and now he's very experienced in designing 3D homes. So so he's out on the forefront of it already, and you can do a lot of our drafting in-house. And then we've also partnered with some other, you know, groups for these other 2 projects, and Bradley kind of collaborates with them.
Do you have any kind of rough estimate of the cost up until the point we saw today of having the foam in and the concrete up?
Yeah, so it's we've tried to track it very carefully.
It's so hard because you have at this point specialized skills, and Andre's labor is kind of one of a kind, irreplaceable almost. Your material guy too.
Yeah, the only thing I can do for Andre's labor is put $500 a day in the pro forma for it. So you know, whether it's worth $400 or $1 million a day, I don't know. You know, but I kind of pro formed it as you know, an engineering type
Fair enough.
person. You know, and then you know I put Danny in at $200 a day and me in at $200 a day. You know, which is, you know, a lot less than I make in my other, you know, businesses, but I'm just trying to kind of put placeholders in to help keep track costs.
I mean, realistically, $20 an hour labor is not going to replace you guys at this point. You take some training, some serious training, and you guys were able to train quickly because of your dedication. $20 an hour doesn't buy that kind of dedication necessarily.
It does not. You have to be an equity holder like Danny and me to really want to sit out there in the 108-degree weather, and you know everyone's like unhappy because there's a problem going on or something. It's something you really kind of bulldog through. You're not going to just hire someone to do that. But the way we're set up is we're keeping a lot of that in-house.
Yeah.
So you know, so when we go out with that crew of 4 people, you know, they're going to be the people that know how to do this like soup to nuts. You know, and in our group we have an electrician, we have, you know, a person that can do rough and plumbing. So you're able to kind of just collapse all those trades and people that are like mission focused, part of the company. Everyone's got some kind of an equity interest in the company, whether it's a tiny one or a big one, right? So everyone's kind of on mission, and it makes it worth it, you know, to kind of go through the process, which can be pretty grueling. Working with concrete in any context is grueling. I mean, you're covered in it. You come home, your clothes are covered in it. You know, you're just it's not always like, you know, like fun or glamorous, you know, but the end products are awesome. So yeah, so that's
with those qualifiers.
Yeah, to get back to the cost, I can say that you know, trying to keep, so I said qualified, trying to keep costs for the labor, which is, you know, kind of a bit of a moving target.
Yeah.
It's also a moving target because, like I say, Andre kind of built with us and revamped a custom machine on the front end.
Mm-hmm.
So how much of that you put into this in this house, I don't know.
Say it's a fixed cost that you worried about in the past. So
yeah.
Only forget about the cost of the printer. Try to include the assembly of the printer on site.
Right.
And then just what it took to get the house built.
So would you want to talk about like cost per square foot or cost for the total house, or?
Well, right now you only have the walls up with the rough-in plumbing.
Sure.
And you have the foam in the walls. No roof yet. No finishing. So with the stuff you've already paid for.
Yeah.
We're
about $100,000 right now. So
yeah, that seems reasonable.
It includes the foundation's 30 of that.
Yeah.
So actually, and that includes the land too. So you know,
wow.
Our wall budget was $15,000. So we're more or less on budget. Certainly on materials. Mm-hmm. So like the foamcrete ended up going a little over. So we're probably somewhere around 25 to 26 in materials for the walls. Not counting any of the labor that we used to put it. When I did a pro forma for the business, you know, for a house that size, it's, you know, just to remind everyone, it's a big house. It's a 3,100 square foot house. So to buy a siding package for that house is $26,000 or thereabout using national averages. So hardy plank siding itself is about $26,000 to have it installed, you know, materials and labor. And then you've got the framing and the insulation and the cladding, which you got to put the plywood around the whole thing.
So you're skipping all that.
Skipping all that. So this is not new. This is what everyone says, right? You're compressing all that into one.
They say it.
System.
They don't all do it though. Sometimes they'll put drywall up inside.
Yeah, it drives me crazy. Yeah, it drives me crazy.
It's because most of them don't get the same layer quality you guys did. So that's there's something to be said for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So when I pro formed it out, it's like I thought. So tracking costs right now. When I put all the plugs in for labor on that wall, we were coming at like low 40s. And to build that wall, materials and labor, traditional, it was about 119. So we're seeing that like big savings in that wall system. Then everything else in the house is pretty traditionally done. The roof is going to be framed and all that stuff. So we're hoping that we're coming in at is 20 to 30% savings over if we had just hired subcontractors to come out and build this house. And and you can check our math on it and double check us on this in about 6 months when we sell it. Because when we sell the house, we'll sell it for something 20% under market or something like that. So if you go out and run your comps in that area, like we'll be a lower cost house compared to the size, and then of course I'll talk all day about how it's better, but it is going to be less expensive.
Yeah, that's an honorable way to put it, I think, because there's other features you could talk about, like the parametric designs and the curved walls, and if you try to get those things built in a traditional house, it would be way more than $119,000 or
Sure.
So to do an exact replica, it would almost be impossible with traditional construction. So I appreciate that you're doing the comp per square foot rather than with all the bells and whistles, which are nice, but not making construction cheaper, which is part of your goal.
Yeah, that's our mission. So like the whole project, building a really cool, unique house that is like, it's like a custom, expensive home. I mean, it's. I think those projects are awesome that people are doing those, but it doesn't excite us. And it doesn't.
I put you guys in that category. You have the walls and the stuff for the, I guess, gallery kind of inside, and you certainly, those added features, it's effort in the design process, but it's only a tiny little bit of extra material. It's basically free.
Yeah, that's maybe even less material. Some instances, So yeah, and so that's just changing the code on the computer. Mm-hmm. So and thinking about it. So that's one of the cool things is as we're building an affordable house, which we're doing, in our next kind of projects. Not only can we build affordable houses that are very like safe and indestructible and will last a long time, they can be cool. They can be places where people really want to live because you can have these unique elements to them without adding costs because you're just changing what you're telling the printer to do at that point.
Especially as an Airbnb, like you said.
Yeah, for Airbnbs or rentals or things like that. So that's kind of one thing that really drew me to the whole technology is like you can do cool architectural stuff without adding those architectural costs that you would normally see.
Yeah, for sure. What kind of finishes are you going to put in the house?
We got a couple ideas. I think overall, we're looking at maybe just a clear coat, a tinted clear coat for where, and some of the bigger, like the cooler sections of the wall, like in the hallway, where we have the cool features going on in there. That's right. So something that really kind of showcases the not only the texture and the color of it. But you could use anything from just painting it to stucco if that's what the customer wanted. But we're going to try to preserve as much as that the uniqueness of the layers and the pigmenting that we added in as possible. But I think there's some areas that we're probably going to paint. Maybe the bedroom. We're going to look at.
Yeah, we're trying to hit that design kind of point where it's like clean, simple. And beautiful. So like it's gonna be stained concrete floors. We're not gonna do much with the walls. We're not gonna have like crown moldings or anything like that. Just a clean finish with the ceiling drywall. Some of the rooms will be painted. Some of them will just be clear coated. The outside will just be clear coated. And so it'll be kind of a modern-ish, but also a little bit kind of southwestern-ish with that coloration. But everything's just gonna be clean and simple and hopefully low maintenance all throughout the house.
Anything special with like HVAC or smart home stuff or anything like that?
Yeah, we're gonna run some cool wireless systems for smart homes, so we don't have to worry about a lot of infrastructure. But we're just we have Toner Home Matters. We have an efficiency expert that's kind of spec'd out some more cutting edge, HVAC systems and smart systems. So we'll integrate that, but we're doing it all wireless, so we don't have to worry about running wires and things like that through all those walls.
I know with thick concrete walls like that, the Wi-Fi, you got to be a little strategic with your. Have you gone through that exercise yet?
We have, yeah. So we're gonna have boosters in a few places to fix that issue because they are thick and they are solid. So yeah.
Have you guys ever heard of a guy called the Liver King?
No.
He's from Houston, I think, or Austin, and he's been going on all these like social media podcasts and stuff talking about how he just eats raw meat and lives in like a cave in his house, so he has no Wi-Fi, and he built his house so that no Wi-Fi can get in, and he only uses Ethernet.
Nice. We could print him a house.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi could be an advantage.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
the right group.
For some people, for the right people.
So you're thinking about building him a cave. I was thinking about consulting. Maybe we bring him in and pick his brain.
Right. Yeah, we just gotta build him a meat locker with a little cave next to it. But like we had that's the other cool thing I forgot to mention. Like in this house, we're gonna pick one of those rooms that have that solid fill, and we're gonna put like a heavy duty ceiling on it and like a metal door on it, so you have like a safe
bomb shelter,
as a bomb shelter, tornado room, that kind of thing. Because we're doing the solid fill walls, so it's like we're normally a tornado room you got to pay all this extra money for. It's the cost of some more heavy duty lumber and a better door.
Or a big safe door on some drywall you could just punch through or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a lot of people don't realize on a hardy plank house. I mean, you can kick through that wall if you're determined, whereas you won't be able to do that in our house. That's one advantage.
You can kick through if you're not determined.
Yeah, right.
Accidentally.
Hopefully nobody's kicking down houses anytime soon. But,
it happens more than we'd like to know, I guess.
Yeah, so you guys have been working on this startup. Have you had other startups before this that you've been involved with?
I have, yeah. So, I was a lawyer in my past life. I did, some.
I didn't see that coming.
Transactional work, yeah.
That's a compliment, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I went to law school. We're a big firm, Vincent & Elkins here in town, and then a litigation boutique after that, and then I left that practice to start a behavioral health company with some friends of mine, and I was a partner there and the general counsel, and I still am the general counsel for that group, and we kind of. That was 2 years ago, and we wanted to. The idea is we get it off the ground and then kind of phase out of the day to day, and that's where I am now. So I'm phasing out of this and into this, and so this is what I've always wanted to do, though. So
sure. How did you jump from law to behavioral health?
Just good friends and clients.
What is behavioral health?
It's a mental health care. So
okay.
So we have offices around the country now, and a rehabilitation center. It's like a super nice 50-acre rehab facility for substance abuse patients, and then we have outpatient centers in Houston and Austin and Chicago and a lot of different places. But yeah, so it was more the fact that my really good friends and really good clients wanted to start it, and they wanted me to help. So
yeah, three such different fields.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was doing a lot of the legal work for the behavioral health roll up. It's a pretty complicated thing to put together. So similar field, and then in the meantime, I've always been building, so this has always kind of been my passion on the side.
Did you build your own house?
I built one of my own houses. Yeah. So kind of went through some of that process through that, and then I've worked on townhouse, developments here in Houston, and done the deal work for them forever. And I've put together a lot of those deals. So it's kind of like, raising money for something like this that I was actually going to be a major partner for was so much easier, because it's something I'm passionate about, and so that comes through, So I've raised money for a lot of different projects and a lot of different people, and some go good and some go bad. This was the people that get it, and they're like, let's do it together. And so we were able to put a smaller group together of people that put some money in to be able to scale it up to the next level, which is 10 houses, then 20 houses, and then I think we've got a potential deal we're kicking around for 80 houses in 2024.
Nice. That would require some more printers, right?
Absolutely. So we're working with Andrey to build some systems. We have some other options out there as far as people to help us build some other systems. So we know what we need. We know how to build it. We know how to use it. So I think it's a matter of just scaling and going at this point.
Well, we're 30 minutes in. I don't think anyone's listening anymore. You guys want a Stella?
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys ever done a podcast before?
I've done a couple.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is my first.
Virtual?
First? Yeah. I was over Skype with two that I did. So we did some for Ethos, which is a behavioral health deal. And then, so I've done a couple of those. I did one for this, just like a random one, because
Cheers.
some lady came out and saw it. She's like, oh, can you do my podcast? And I was like, sure. So are we
Nice.
off air, or are we still recording?
We're still recording.
Okay, so this is like a live sitting around drinking Stella. I like it.
Yeah, it's always been a relaxed podcast. I mean,
Right.
it's all focused around automated construction, but it's just so few people listen to the whole thing anyway.
Yeah.
And I think in the long term, it'll be really interesting to see the companies like yours. You guys are just getting started, and there's so
Right.
much potential for the industry. Who knows where you're going to be in 2 years, 4
Yeah.
years, 10 years.
Yeah.
So it'll be super cool to like do this again with you guys.
Right. Absolutely.
And see
Yeah.
how things change.
No, we're like we've burned the ships. We're this or nothing. So it has to happen for us.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm just filming the projects. You guys are actually having to do them and
Yeah.
do the sweat and the improving the technology and stuff. But yeah, it's as long as you guys keep doing your job, I'll be able to keep doing my job.
Yeah. No, you should come out. So when we do the round top one or the Marfa's cool. You should come out to Marfa and just
Yeah.
like stay out there with us for a while and like shovel sand with us and do all that stuff. I mean, it'd be
Great
kinda
video.
like- yeah, it'd be a great video. Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit more of like maybe a dirty process than maybe some other places, but like but it's efficient. Like we're I don't know. I since we don't have a lot of money, it's like we can't spend a lot of money.
Yeah, that's a
Forced discipline.
sleeper benefit almost.
Yeah, it's like forced discipline. Like we could go out and raise money. Like I say, I stopped raising money after I got what I thought we needed, and it went really well. So we could keep doing it, but it's like I feel like forcing ourselves to be disciplined about it is going to help us stay on mission, which is to be able to build these things like more efficiently. If you just have the money lying around, I just feel like you're going to spend it.
Are you guys spending money on an office right now?
No.
Yeah, nice.
This is it. It's Danny and me and David and Andre, and Andre's got an RV. He drives around in. I mean, it's super lean. And I think after we will need a place to park some of our stuff. We've got some equipment and machinery. You saw some of it out there that we've got to park. It's as we move past Marfa, but Marfa's probably gonna take us 4 or 5 months. So after we do that, then we'll probably bring it back and get a yard or something. We've got some options for it.
While we're talking about the equipment, how was the mixer pump system used?
Say it one more time.
The mixer pump and the whole material process.
So with our setup with Andre, we it's pretty simple, elegant in its simplicity. There's a screening station, a trough that turns up, dumps into our mixer. It's just a standard drum mixer. It's got a big paddle in it that feeds into the pump, and from the pump, it's just I think it's a 6-inch rotostator. It pumps to our extruder, and that's all the magic happens though with the extruder in Andre's system. But everything that goes into that is, Tim said before, using local materials. It's basically Portland, fly ash, sand, some aggregate, and water. So it's a pretty standard mortar mix, but we're able to get up there and kind of keep an eye on it, and so much of it is it's really subject to the humidity, the temperature, all those things. So you really do have to kind of visually keep an eye on it and just make sure that it's the right consistency, and kind of there's a lot of tactile inspection, feeling the mortar and really getting up close to it.
Yeah.
But that kind of fits in with like we're talking about this forced discipline thing, keeping things simple and really kind of making us get down in there with our hands and getting very acquainted with the product that we're working with. And I think that's made us really good at what we're doing so far. It's given us a different perspective than I think you would in some other systems.
Yeah, we had a engineering group come out that were looking to invest in the company. They brought a whole team of engineers out.
Nice.
And it was driving them crazy, like watching us work, because they were like, okay, so how much? So like, how much water do you put in, and We're like, well.
Until Andre says it looks good.
Yeah, well, to Danny says it looks good.
Oh, you got it down.
To Andre's credit, like, like he was over with his machine, and you'd ask like Andre, like, hey, does this look right? He's like, I don't know. What do you think? Like Andre, he's very, like hands off once he decides that like, you guys have got it. So like he gave us some general parameters, and then we just kind of mix it, and so the idea is, guys, until it looks good, like this batch it may be, a 3/4 of a bucket. The next batch it may be like half a bucket of water, just because the sand might be a little bit different. So you want to you just want to look like lumpy oatmeal. It doesn't look like lumpy oatmeal. You add more water, but and so but they couldn't. It was driving them crazy because it was like, so it's different every time. It's like, kind of,
Yeah, I think that's a big part of why you got such a high quality material and high quality layers. The process you're using, so you said it's a screener to get rid of the big aggregate.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then it goes into a tumbler, or what's the name?
A drum.
It's
a drum.
There's a trough in it
that spins.
It takes it up to the drum mixer and then dumps it in there, and then it mixes it.
So in the drum mixer, it's going continuously until you tell it to dump.
It operates pretty continuously. The pump is intermittent, but the mixer is pretty much going the whole time we're working, and so we're feeding it. We're constantly feeding it sand or Portland down in the end, bringing it up there, and then dumping the water up there in the mixer, and it's going pretty nonstop.
Yeah, most teams I've seen have somebody watching the extruder head to monitor the material, and then based on the visual quality there, they might know it has to be drier or more wet or go slower, faster. So they're usually communicating to the person at the mixer pump. Is that the same?
So something similar. We do a lot of that visual inspection right there at the pump and the mixer. We're pretty close together as far as how we're arranged at the site, so there's a lot of communication going on. If we need to cut back on the sand, or if the sand might have a little bit too much moisture in it, he'll let me know. And Andre's, of course, he's monitoring the progress of the model, and he lets us know if it's coming out of the extruder one way or another.
Andre had that thing wired in with so many cameras. And every time I turn
we
around,
gotta talk about the cameras.
He's wiring another camera. I was like, how many cameras do we need? But anyway, so we have all these cameras everywhere. So we got, on the iPad, you can go look at it going into the little hopper on the extruder. And one thing that we learned is once we got the machine optimized, we actually had a decent strike zone as far as the mix. That like early on we were, really concerned about hitting this like perfect consistency all the time with the mix, and after Andre and us made a few adjustments to the machine, we got to the point where it's like it had to be in a band, but it wasn't that narrow a band. It could be a little wider, it could be a little thicker. The machine handled it fine either way, as long as the layers were stacking and setting up pretty good, we were good.
Yeah, the projects I visited usually have some change in color throughout the print, but not intentionally. And I think your intentional change in color, I don't know if it masked it or it was consistent, but it definitely has good effects.
Yeah, no, I when Andre told us to do that, I was like, okay, cool, we'll paint over it later, But then he did it, and I was like, oh, it looks cool.
It looks great.
Yeah, it looks great. So we'll keep it. He was right about that,
It takes away a little bit of the like prison cell vibe.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's another design thing. I mean, we try to design big with big windows, and that living area is a big vaulted ceiling. Goes up 20-some feet. So just kind of have a lot more air inside the house to avoid that cave-like feeling. Also, 10 foot tall on the walls, which is, I think. Like you say, you build a custom home. Usually, you start out with 9-foot walls, and then you add that other foot, and it costs you a fortune. But it's much nicer on the inside. With the printer, it doesn't add that much more to go with that other foot. So it's another thing you can do that's low cost but high impact.
How many square feet are on the lofted section?
980. So the 990. The bottom's like 2160.
So more than 2/3 in the printed walls, and then something in the ceiling, loft.
Yeah, it's like a loft
bedroom
type area up there. Yeah, I mean, well, it's just a loft right now, so it's just like a big. So the idea was the whole house is so like hard, like everything on the bottom floor is like like concrete everything, and so they have kind of a soft space up top where you can have like a TV room and game room, stuff like that. Would be kind of a nice change.
Yeah, I think that's smart, using different materials and big glass and ways to make it less monotonous.
Yeah. So yeah, that's so yeah, we were happy with our architect, and it didn't start that way. It started as a 2,160 square foot house with no loft, and mother-in-law's suite attached to the garage, because the garage it's like a giant garage, so that's another 750 square feet that we're not counting that we actually printed. But that mother-in-law suite cost per square foot was actually kind of high because you're adding, appliances and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we scrapped that, and then we added the loft, and that got that total square foot much higher. And it was kind of just a way to optimize what we had, because our architect had already designed this kind of high-pitched roof, and there's all that space up there. We needed to use it.
It's interesting, the garage too. That's a pretty uncommon feature in an Airbnb.
Well, it wasn't. We didn't initially. We wanted to stay flexible with it because we are going to sell that house at one point.
Was that the maybe granny suite or?
Yeah, I was going to have a granny suite to it, and we're going to sell the house, so like that area, like, it's a higher end real estate market.
They expect
it's
a
like
garage.
Houston Hill Country, so like the house is built. That's also our subdivision development, and the houses people are building there are like $700,000-800,000 houses. So like you're going to build a house that's similar in price point. You have to have a detached garage. You have to have all the bells and whistles and all that good stuff. It has to be a big house to kind of fit the area. But that's not necessarily what we want to go with a lot of what we're doing next. We want to maybe mix in some custom projects as we go for people that want to build something really cool.
Yeah, it's good to stay adaptable. I mean, you definitely want to reach that affordability at some point, but if you are hitting like a value market or a high, like a quality or a more expensive market, it's like the Model S came out before the Model 3.
Right. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, in this house, you just have a lot more room for error, with a bigger house, at a higher price point. I mean, if we missed our costs, we still have margin in the house. And I mean, that's another thing that we really wanted to do. We wanted to be profitable from day one. I mean, we built a house. We spent, we're going to spend, I don't know, something less than $300,000 building it. And it's going to be a $600,000 house at
Wow.
minimum. So, like, we have a margin, right? Even with all our printer building and, everything else we're doing, like, there's still a margin there from our first one. So, as a startup, that's like a cool spot to be in.
Yeah, I think it was smart to print the garage first too, because I noticed every company, they get their first printer, they do their first print, and it's a mess because it's so challenging. You get frustrated, and then you just want to get done with the project. And then their second home, they learn from the lessons. It's less stressful. If something goes wrong, they just address it. So you got that first project. It was only really the one smudge I saw. We didn't inspect super closely, but for the most part, it looks great. But the print you did after that was noticeably better.
Yeah, and then we were just learning. We were adjusting the machine for the local conditions and the weather and the mix. It all came into it. So yeah, so we had to and now we'll be able to do it, better from the very very get go. And there was like in the garage there's some cracking. We solved that. That was a hydration issue. All that cracking and things like that is all non-structural because of the infill.
And it wasn't floor to ceiling too, which is good.
Yeah, no, I mean that would have worried me if we had a crack going from the floor all the way to the ceiling.
It happens, and like you said,
Yeah.
it's non-structural, but it's better if it doesn't.
Right. We're talking little 4-inch, 5-inch cracks here and there. It was just hot. It was so hot and so dry out there and really windy. There was a period everything was just blowing over from the wind. It was kind of nuts.
I think it's our fourth tent, the one that's out there, the blue tent in the dining area. Yeah.
We watched a lot of tents fly off into the sunset up there in the hills.
But there remains of quite a few.
Yeah,
You need to print some concrete anchors for the...
we do. Yeah.
I'll say anchors. Andrey's gonna hear.
Yeah, no, Andrey over-engineers everything, so he always had these, plans for how we were going to build an indestructible tent, and we can't over-engineer the tent, man. We just gotta keep on the house. We'll just cost $150. We'll just buy a new one. So
Anchors. The printer needs some sizable anchors to preserve rigidity, right?
yeah,
Yep.
we drilled into the ground on this one and poured a little concrete in there and anchored it in. So, and in the future, maybe we'll come with a better system that's a little faster. But this one, we're being super careful.
Yeah, I don't see any way to avoid the anchors with the gantry system. You're just moving such a heavy piece of equipment. You can't be changing direction so quickly. But I saw one group in California did something pretty clever. They used the they poured sidewalks, and that was the anchor. So then they
cool.
cut off the connection and left the sidewalk. Granted, it's like twice as thick as a regular sidewalk, maybe 3 times. But
Yeah. We didn't have to do all that. I mean, we just got a drill with a big, auger in it, and broke my wrist 4 or 5 times, but just drilled into the ground, like a hole about that deep, and then poured a little concrete in there and stuck a bolt in there and used that to bolt into it.
That's not bad. I mean, other groups are using 4-ton blocks.
To goodness.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I don't know, man. This Storybott's a nimble machine, I mean, it was, to Andrey's credit, I mean, everything he's done, because he's been forced to do it, I think, not being Icon with, hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever, is very practical. So, I mean, we rolled in, he brought the whole thing on a 40-foot trailer, and we brought tools, that's all we brought to the job site, we had sand delivered, and then so, we put an auger on and drilled holes in and stuck a bolt in there and bolted the rails down to that. It worked fine. I mean, and then underneath the rails was just like wood shims to give it level.
So it's a printer on rails.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly what it is.
Yeah.
We're learning a little as slowly we're picking up a little more information. I know that Andrey is very secretive about some of his technology, which rightfully so. You develop something, you don't want somebody to go and take it. Fair enough. It's interesting to get little insights.
Yeah, no, it's that. Yeah, he doesn't want it really featured in a lot of videos, and I get it. It's his machine, and as we're building our own with him, we'll try and respect the parameters he has for
sure.
that. Even though at times I think that it's been the printer designs that you see out there, they all fall into different categories, but they're all getting to the same place, which is they're moving, they're moving the nozzle around where it needs to go, and I don't really think that's where the magic is in the whole process. I think it has more to do with the entire system that you put behind it, and the material science, all of which Andrey is great at, and and getting it all to work together. I mean, I could build. We feel like we could build a similar house with a lot of different machines. Andrey just happens to be the best. So
Sure. So you got Andrey's printer, you got the software, you're using kind of off-the-shelf 3D printer software that's modified.
Yeah. So I don't know how much Andrey wants me to talk about that, but it's
We can glaze over it then.
Yeah, it starts with an open source program, and it's been modified by Andrey and another guy that works with Andrey. So it's kind of a custom program.
Yeah, cool. And so for those who don't know, Andrey built a printed castle in his backyard many years ago. It was when the Icon CEO, I think, was in school, and the CTO, they printed a small shed. Mm-hmm. And there's a funny picture of their CTO in a yellow raincoat next to the shed. But I think around the same time, Andrey was printing, and then he did a hotel in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Did you ever visit that project, or
Nope.
Did you see any of his other prints?
Not in person.
Wow.
I just started talking to Andrey, over Zoom, via email, and back at that time, this was just a year ago, so things have moved pretty fast. But the big mystery to me was if this stuff is so great, where are all the houses? That was kind of the research project I set myself upon. It's like if it works, if it saves cost, if these machines that are commercially available now can do it, where are all the houses? And so this was just this big mystery to me. And I, banged my head up against that. I talked to every printer manufacturer out there, and they all said no problem, buy the printer, you'll be able to build a house with it right away, and something just wasn't adding up, so so I was the only way to figure this out is to do it. And then I was well, how do we do that? So there was Andrey, there was a couple other groups that were that we're still working with that were well, let's just do this together and we'll prove the concept together. And Andrey was the most flexible, seemed the most experienced to be able to do that. So that's what we're gonna solve. We're gonna solve the mystery because Andrey's gonna drive down here with his printer, and we're gonna joint venture this project and then joint venture the company together with him going forward. And that's what we did.
Wow, you really took a leap of faith in
Yeah.
not seeing the printer, not seeing it how it works.
You know, in my past life as a lawyer, I know how to structure things that kind of protect all the parties. You know, I always say like, hey, look, if there's a need and there's funding, there's a way to share the risk in this in a way that makes sense for everybody.
And Andrey was the perfect partner in that he brought the printer, the expertise. You were able to bring the land and some funding to do the project.
Land, funding, you know, future projects, you know, all the thing, you know, a business structure that could help, you know, grow it. All those things could come from our side.
Yeah.
To allow him to really, you know, focus on his passion. So yeah, so like he was the perfect kind of person that was that flexible to kind of really prove the concept out. So, you know, it was just a time of like, well, we didn't know necessarily if Andrey was going to come. You know, like we know we had a. I mean, I know he was going to be good to his word when he said he was going to come. You know, but like until you never met him. You know, so until he arrives, you know, with the trailer on the back and the printer, like you don't know. You know, and then. You know, he arrives and it's just Andrey with his stuff, you know, it's like, it's me and you know, and Danny, and we're like, oh, let's get started. So start unloading that, you know, trailer piece by piece, you know, like.
Isn't the internet great?
Yeah, the internet's great. Yeah, you know, just, I mean, it was just metal. I mean, it was just, you know, rails and, you know, components and wires and, you know, and then we just got together putting this thing together and put it all together and it worked, you know, so. Which was, no one knew if it was going to work until it did.
Yeah, it's harder than people initially anticipate. It seems like when you watch you hear about a 3D printed house, maybe you have experience with a 3D printer, and I mean, I thought it's like you press it, there's no more work on a construction site all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's the sci-fi dream. And you know, and we're not really all that far from it.
You're working towards it.
Yeah, when you think about like where we are now, like the sci-fi dream is you read the book, and you know a truck rolls in and you press a button and the robots kind of roll off the truck and then they build a house, right? Yeah. And that's like the promise, right? And so like we're closer than that than you would think, you know, because like right now what we have is like we have the trailer roll up and like this first time, you know, we pulled out pieces and Andrey put his printer together, but like next time we do it, you know, the printer's already been put together. We're not going to do that ever again. And so like we kind of unload the printer and set it down.
What do you mean it'll be put together?
It'll be like
partially assembled,
fully assembled in big chunks that can, you know, as opposed to like completely disassembled. Like Andrey had to, I mean Andrey was up there in Minnesota in the winter, you know, and he has his printer all broken down into the tiniest components because he's had to winterize the whole thing, you know, and so when he came down, it was bolts, you know, so
wires,
bolts and wires and stuff. I mean, and he's a genius, you know. He just got to work, you know, like doing the wiring. So like that's all like a unique process that, you know, as when we build our machine with him, you know, it's going to be in big components that just, you know, there's like we already know how we're going to do it. We discussed it with Andrey. I mean, it's going to have 4 or 5 pieces that you have to kind of set up.
Yeah, rapid assembly is so important if you want to have a fast job site. I mean, assembling some of these printers is as hard as like printing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I've been on that from day one. The cool thing about the StroyBot is it's by necessity really portable. So like the pieces of it can all be lifted with 2 people. There's one piece that needs like 3 or 4 people to lift into place, or 1 crane, you know. But like it can all be done with people, and so and really. It can all, if you're not trying to fit it into a 40-foot trailer that you're driving from, you know, across the country, and you're trying to put it on a flatbed, it can break down into 2 or 3 pieces, and you just put those 2 pieces. So like when we moved it from the garage section to the house, that's more of like the test case of like how we would move the actual printer. That was like a 3-day process to get it all set up to print that whole house.
Still, I think not that bad, but more than people might anticipate.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe we'll be better in the future about it. You know, like, but yeah, I mean, it's, but to get back to the original point, to spend like 2 days, you know, putting something together and then kind of feeding material into it and press a button printing, like it's not that far off from like having it already be put together and kind of doing it by itself. Like the hard part's what it's doing, not necessarily the setup so I feel like we're already looking at different like ways to automate the mixing and everything. We've got good ideas for that.
Yeah, that's the next step, I'd say, as far as making it automated. That and hose management's tough, too.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's watch that.
Who's watching the hose?
Who's watching the hose? Yeah.
I'm gonna hire somebody just to watch the hose.
Oh, it's funny.
So I don't get yelled
I
at.
looked at a budget for another company, that someone was showing me, and so like getting my feedback on having actually done it. And they had a person on there called a hose minder. And so it's like, yes, you had a dedicated hose minder. We had like the way we were set up, it was just like everyone has to watch the hose, no matter where you are. Just watch the hose, make sure it doesn't kink, And we kinked it once and blew it up, so that was cool.
A lot of stuff can happen with the hose.
Yeah.
A lot of hoses blow up. The hose management systems, nobody has a great one from what I've seen. It's really tricky.
Yeah.
Really tricky. It's
It's
heavy.
eyeballs, it's like we were using a plastic hose, so you just have to watch the thing, and that in ours, Andrey's a little more replaceable. It's not the end of the world if you get a kink in your hose.
The bad thing is if it hits the wall that you printed.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, that hasn't really been an issue.
We got a few
We've run
splatters to
into.
spray them off.
You mean as far as like some discharge from the hose or the hose itself?
Either one, but if mostly the hoses are heavy and they sag a little bit, so if they're going from one corner to the other corner, maybe they brush
I
into
see.
a wall on the way.
Yeah.
Andres is unique in that his hose generally stays out of the way.
Yeah, he's got a big, long thing that keeps it all the way away from the printer, so...
Yeah, 2 years ago, every project had someone just hugging the hose. Like
Really?
a 6-inch diameter concrete hose weighs
Yeah.
like 200
Oh, no.
pounds.
Good lord.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're better than that.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. Yeah, I'd love to pick your brain about it. You're going to what do you say, you're going to South America next?
No, there's not really anything in South America. I'm going to stay in the States for the rest of 2022 for sure, and probably the rest of my lease at this place, which is up in the summer. So at that point, I'm hoping the Cybertruck comes out, which I placed an order on, and I'll ship it to Europe and have the first Cybertruck in Europe. Visit
the life goals, yeah.
every 3D printed construction company
Yeah,
for 6 months. I'll bring my dog with me, and
right.
last time I went, Cobot was really generous to pay for my flight there,
Yeah,
and I canceled my flight back so that I could visit other companies, but I was obligated to stay with them for a certain period of time, and it was great. I'm really grateful for them for giving me that opportunity, but this time I'd like to pay my own way and be able to visit every company I possibly can.
yeah.
So I'll dedicate a sizable amount of time to that. Europe in 2023, and then I think the Middle East, Africa, and Asia in 2024.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so what's going on in, for a while there, Qatar had that, what was it, like 25% of their buildings had to be 3D printed or
Yeah,
something?
Dubai
Dubai.
was, it had changed exactly what it was a lot of times, but initially they said they want 25% of buildings printed, then they said 25% of every building has to be printed, so it needs 25% printed components, but I think there was some disconnect between what 3D printed concrete or 3D printing is capable of in construction right now and their expectations, and they're still pursuing 3D printed construction. I don't think that's going to be a law where every 25, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it was an interesting concept because, it's like, there's only a handful of buildings anywhere that are, totally 3D printed, I guess, so not a handful now, there's more, but...
Yeah, it's increasing really fast now all of a sudden, and especially when there's projects like you guys I didn't know about last week. So maybe there's another one that's staying low-key. I don't think so, because I did see pictures of your project from different places.
Yeah.
But
well, we weren't trying to be secret. I mean, we did do it on the highway. So, I mean, every day we were doing, there was people, coming around, checking us out or whatever. So, people, just word of mouth or whatever. It was weird, my whole goal, which I failed at, was to build the house and completely finish it and then show people. Because, a lot of people wouldn't necessarily believe what we were doing until we showed that we could do it, right? And just getting the walls up where we are now, I think we're kind of to that point where, there's going to be a house there. You're going to build a house. It's not going to fail,
Yeah.
So we accomplished it in that. But my original plan was just to finish the whole thing, which we're only a couple months out from. But then, like I say, we're on the highway. It's kind of a small town. Everyone started talking, and then, a few people find you, and then, the right person finds you, and then they post something, and then it kind of just,
it's such a cool thing. I mean, if
Yeah.
somebody sees a 3D printed house, they're going to tell everybody they know in town, in their town,
Right.
or if they're one of the guys working on it. Every printed house it's pretty reliable. If there's a printed house in town, you can go to a bar with some tradies and just ask, "Where's the printed house?" And they know.
It was weird in Brenham. Like we were just like, because Brenham's a small town, and like we would like go like to a hotel where I was like, "Oh, you guys are doing the 3D printed house?" And we're like, "Yeah, I guess so." You know.
Their next question is this thing going to take my job?
Yeah, it's like I hope not. You know, like but.
I don't think it will because it's changing the jobs.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some world where it's difficult to do new masonry work, but I don't see that happening anytime soon. I'm not a Nostradamus, but
yeah, we haven't gotten like we've had a few like kind of run-ins with some like builders that were a little negative, but
the job market's good now.
Yeah, I mean we've got some people that naysayers and stuff. It's interesting when you talk to construction people, like home builders, either think it's the coolest thing in the world or the stupidest thing in the world. There's like no one in between. Like it's like you talk to some like home builders and they get it and they're like, this is like awesome, like how do I get involved? And other home builders are like, that's never gonna work, it's gonna be more expensive, and like just want to tear it down. So it's just like kind of an interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, it seems from my perspective like it is normally more expensive just because it's the first, it's early, and there's all these challenges, but it's not going to get less expensive unless people are doing it, and you're getting the knowledge of working with automation on site, which is super valuable as this technology improves, which it is improving as opposed to traditional construction not improving.
I mean, yeah, because like when you think about like framing, if you've watched a professional framer work, there is no more efficiency that can be wrung out of that process. I mean, these people are so good at what they do. They go on there and they're just like machines, and that's peak, like we're not going to get better at like hand framing houses.
With all due respect, I think people used to be better at it. I think that
right.
Like there's some old videos of guys doing framing and they just grab a nail, mark the drywall, and like make some crazy arch on the ceiling while they're like holding the nail in their teeth.
Right.
I don't see people doing that anymore. I think there's so few people going to trades now.
Yeah. So I don't know if maybe so. I think that like there's probably not much more efficiency, that hasn't already happened since people have been doing it for so long. There's a lot of room for improvement in green space and the automation, and I do think I see a very clear path to be a lower cost product with it. I think that in this house, had we built this house as subcontractors, it would have cost us more. I'm pretty confident when we tracked all the costs that like. Maybe we saved $1, maybe we saved, $100,000, but somewhere in there we've had cost savings. Just because I know that the finished product, there was only one bank account, there was only a certain amount of money in that bank account, and the house, got done or is going to get done, come heck or high water with that fund, and that fund is a lower cost per square foot by a good margin than had we hired a builder to do it. And maybe that's a function of the builders being really, really expensive out there. So like we are playing with that a little bit. But even so, that's just the case.
Did you get any deals from material suppliers or any of the contractors donating anything?
No. I mean, there was a couple people that maybe gave us a little better price because they thought it was cool, but not really. I mean, we bought our concrete from Lowe's.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I mean, Danny played the concrete game for a while, which is like, there's only so much bagged concrete in Brenham, so Danny had to call around.
Right. We bought all of it.
Yeah, right. But
cement.
Cement, yeah. Sorry, not concrete. That's a rookie mistake, right?
Rookie movement.
Yeah, right. No, Danny spent a lot of time calling around, like, "Hey, you got a pallet for us?" It's like a drug dealer for cement. But
everyone in construction can relate. I mean, logistics and supply have been a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully, since we're using fewer types of materials anyway, we're getting better at that. But
it is a lot of cement.
It's a lot of cement. Yeah, I mean, we have the filling the walls was where we spent most of it. Because that foamcrete is just cement and foam.
Wow.
Yeah, there's nothing else in it. So it's neat cement. So neat cement's got probably about a 4,000 psi as opposed to like concrete, which is like a 5,000 or 6,000 psi. And who knows what the foam, how that affects the psi. I mean, we did a lot of testing with it. We put a lot of weight on it. It seems just fine. And the eye test says it's just fine, and the density measurements we have says it's just fine. But we don't really know. But yeah. So it was 26 pallets went to those walls. That's $12,000 worth of cement. But $12,000 worth of cement in the walls, maybe $3,000 or $4,000 worth of cement on the printed sections of the walls, and a couple $1,000 worth of sand, and that's your walls. You know?
That sounds low for the printed section of the wall.
It's remember those 1.5 inch strips.
1.5 inches.
Yeah, so
Wow.
it's not that much material. And in the sand, we did get a really good deal on sand from our yard up there. Leroy Schrader has good deals on sand if anyone's looking. You know?
And best prices on Portland.
Yeah, and best price on Portland too, so I'll give them a shout out.
In Brenham.
Yeah,
Right.
$27 a cubic yard. So for the concrete sand, it's a good price. But yeah, so it's not really that much material for the printed section because we're printing in those small strips, and we didn't do those mortar supports. You know, a lot of people that print the walls, they do that wave in the middle or
Corrugated, whatever.
Yeah, that number one, I got to take a long time to do that.
Cold bridging too. And
Yeah, so we just use these little galvanized wire things we had made from a spring company, and they were like 30 cents a piece. You know, we used maybe a couple hundred of them, not a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 of them. So it's just a lower cost to do it that way.
from a spring company.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I took a hinge date to a sushi bar. She was an Aggie. Is that a good thing?
Being an Aggie?
Yeah.
Depends on the
It's
Aggie.
a good thing, right? You got to
It's
say it.
45,000. Yeah, sure. Why
It's a
not?
cult.
My wife's an Aggie, so I guess so.
Everyone says it's a cult, right?
A little bit. I mean, it's a big school.
Did you dunk your ring in the pitcher and drink?
Yeah, I did that. Everyone does that. Danny did that.
I don't have mine though.
Yeah.
You're an Aggie too.
That's right.
All right. Are you guys born and raised in Texas?
I am not.
I've been here since
I'm a damn
elementary
Yankee.
school. Yeah.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. What part?
Holyoke.
Holyoke, Massachusetts. Is that near Boston?
I'm gonna say yes.
Small
I don't
state.
know. It's been so long. I grew up mostly on the East Coast, North Carolina and Virginia. I don't remember much about Massachusetts.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
Holyoke's kind of in the. Is there a mountainous part?
I don't know. I don't know anything about Massachusetts.
Mount Holyoke. I always
Yeah.
associate with
Yeah.
Mount Holyoke, so
Yeah.
I think maybe there's a hill or a mountain somewhere nearby.
Yeah, I'm from the East Coast too, Jersey.
Okay, cool.
What made you
The
decide
real
to come
owners
to
of the
Houston?
Statue of Liberty.
Houston is a great place for me to be centralized in the United States, just to visit I can go to California in about 24 hours of driving. I can go back to the
Yeah.
East Coast. I mean, I drive everywhere, so
Right.
I do about 5,000 miles a month.
Yeah, that's crazy.
5,000 miles a
Yeah.
month. Well, I don't know. What do we do?
I don't know. We're doing a lot of back and forth right now. Like we're spending a lot of time
It's
going back and
close.
forth to Brenham. I don't have a cool Tesla though. I've got saying lean, like eventually our company's gonna have to buy a truck, because mine, the Blue Streak is
Blue
a
Streak.
2011 F-150 with about 250,000 miles on it now, and so it's the warning lights are on, and it's starting to,
She's done her part.
she's done her part. So
At about 4,000 miles a month and $3 a gallon, it became cheaper to drive the Tesla than my old Jeep Commander, 2007 Jeep Commander I
Yeah.
had. So it was to save money actually.
yeah,
The electricity is just so much cheaper.
right. No, it's so yeah, we're about to actually buy a truck for the company. We it sound like we're poor. We're not. We've got great capital partners.
I didn't
They
think
put the
that at
money
all.
in. They put the money in, and we've got it. I'm just so like, I don't know, just miserly with it right now. Like I'm waiting to the last minute to spend
Absolutely.
everything. So
It's
like I
getting
said,
early going.
once a company starts struggling with cash, that's when you really start like stressing.
I mean, I asked you guys in the video if you guys wanted to do any fundraising. You said, nope, not
Nope,
interested in
not
raising
right
it.
now.
We don't need
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I didn't have the impression you were cash strapped at all.
Yeah.
When you did your first round of fundraising, was it friends and family?
Friends and not family, because I can't really mix that with business.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
More like acquaintances and friends. I mean, people. There's only like 8 or 9 of them. So 8 or 9 people putting in, money, amount of money that's comfortable to them because they really get the mission, and they're all strategic. They're like, this person's a multifamily developer, and this person's a home builder, and this person's a industrial construction guy. So it's everyone that can kind of, and this person's, a developer. So like people that can bring a little something extra. So we kind of chose our partners, and I've dealt with a lot of closely held companies, and you want to have good partners and good investors that are going to understand when things don't go the way they're planning, because they never do. And I think we've got that right now. So, well, like I say, if we're gonna do 80 houses in 2024, we're probably gonna need to raise a little bit more money, but we probably may do it on the project side as opposed to the company side. So we can, like our Marfa project, it's one of our partners who's the developer on the project, and we can help him raise money for that project.
At a cap rate, like a normal real estate development deal.
Exactly, right. And then they can hire the construction company to come in and do that, which is the 3D company. And so we can participate on that development or not, just depending on how the deal works out. I think those types of structures are much better for this emerging stuff, because if you're all in the same boat rowing together, and you're kind of partners or joint ventures on things, like we don't necessarily know how much it's going to cost to build Marfa,
Yeah. If you raise $1 billion and you do a bunch of printed homes, it's like an art project almost. It's not about the return. But if you're able to do it in a traditional real estate development deal kind of scenario, I think that speaks a lot more to the viability.
You have, because you have no choice, right? So either people are going to either make money on it or they're going to lose money on it. And like, one way to start something like this is to raise a bunch of money and say, hey, we're going to spend 4 years refining our technology, and our processes, and we're going to expect to lose money, over the first, however many years. And I don't know if I can get investors on board for that or not, but like, it's a stressful way to be. So I'm like, let's do it to where like, put together one project in one house that will make money, and if that makes money, we can replicate that and grow it that way. So that's what we're trying to do anyway. Development, and everything we do is profitable. That's the goal.
Yeah, I like to ask what you need most right now to grow, to reach the scale.
I think it's probably, guys, I don't know. We got good projects lined up. It wouldn't hurt if these projects came, if we're able to really button down our next 2 years in projects and really do that 80 houses in 2024, we're going to need at least 4 printers. So there will be a little bit of capital required. And I think we could probably just all put it in amongst ourselves and with cash flow, but we're open to maybe a few extra partners, but it wouldn't be like a massive out there money raise. So that and smart people and cool projects are like really my thrust right now. Like someone comes to me and be like, I've got an awesome project in this part of the country that somewhere you guys can get to, and we can show good economics for it, and I can put together a great pro forma for it. And I can either fund it with my people, or like the pro forma is good enough that you can go out to your people and get them to put in money for it. That's the type of stuff that interests me. And I guess the real answer to that question is like people that are committed to it, they can actually pay some money up front so we can mobilize. That's easier for us, as opposed to like, trying to structure everything where everyone's making money on the back end. Just easier if we had a little bit of upfront money so we can get all our stuff out there and our people out there, and Danny and me can pay our mortgages and all that good stuff. So,
what do you think you'd need to raise for the 80 home project? Like a rough estimate.
Well, I think we could do those. These are small houses. They're 1,000 square feet. So you're looking at build costs in the $8 million range or so. But most of that's going to be bank finance. So you're probably going to need to raise $1 million for that or something. But the people that are doing that may have it all in-house. So they may syndicate it. I don't know. They want to do it. So, haven't really talked to them. But, like, it's not hard to raise $1 million for a project like that. We raised not too far from that for our launch, and just go out to people, $100,000 a time, $50,000, offer a good return, offer the chance to do something cool for the community, and it's not that hard.
Yeah, it's like you guys kind of did it the old-fashioned way, going to individuals, and a lot of companies now do crowdfunding or some social media hack.
Yeah, I don't, having to answer to, hundreds of people that put $1,000 in. Yeah. It's, number one, it's administratively very difficult. You have 1,000 shareholders now or unit holders, as opposed to, 9 or 10 that really are kind of your partners in the business. So that's and are bringing that to it as well. That's how I've always raised money for companies that I've done. I don't have like Silicon Valley connections or crowdfunding connections or anything like that. I've got like Houstonian people that want to start businesses kind of connections. So that's how we did it. But I'm not saying that's the best way to do it. It's just the way I know how to do it. So
seems like a good way to do it to me. I don't see why not. Local people, there maybe you mentioned some of them have experience that's beneficial to you too.
Right.
It seems like you've done a good job selecting a team that has very complementary skill sets.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know everything or hardly anything sometimes. I'm just consider myself a smart guy and want to learn, and have a passion for it. So, and Danny's the same way, and so we're kind of blank slates. But I've built houses, but I haven't built thousands of houses like my partner has. So he can give us all that insight. And I've never certainly 3D printed a house, but Andrey has, so he can give us all that insight. He's probably 3D printed more buildings than anyone in the world, so that's cool to have.
I don't think so.
As far as being around,
yeah, for sure. He was really one of the first people on the scene.
Right. So, and we have other, people out there that are advising us on that side. The other cool thing about what I've learned about this whole process and industry is you have your 3D printing industry, and then you've got your concrete industry that's so much more mature, and there's so much knowledge out there just waiting to be brought into it. Concrete science, people have been doing this for years and can mix anything. If you just go to those people, and then on the equipment side, everyone struggles with their mixing systems. There are commercial concrete mixing systems that are super advanced. So if you just fit some of that to your system, then you're leaping forward with a step. I really want to look at using on-demand concrete trucks.
Yeah.
Those things, we looked at a couple of those and really did a deep dive into it. And they've got computer systems that can measure your additives. They can take the dry mix and do it all right there in the truck. We just load it up with the dry mix, and it seems like it would work to me. But who knows?
That seems like the way to go. If you can not worry about the mixer pump system at all and have the right concrete mix delivered, but it's hard.
Yeah. No, I'm not delivered. I'm not talking about
mixed on site.
Yeah, mixed on site. So you have these on-demand. There's several companies that make them. These big concrete on-demand trucks. You load it up with dry.
It's like a batch plate mixer on a truck.
That's exactly what it is. It's a batch plate on a truck, and you got a computer where you can dial in exactly how much water you want, and this additive, that additive. I don't see why it wouldn't work. And so we're looking at it. And then you got that's a mature industry. So you're getting that robust equipment, as opposed to stuff that you're kind of making now.
Mm-hmm. Do you know how many rotor stators you went through to get to the point you're at now?
One.
Only one? Wow.
And it was right at the end too. It was the one on the mixer pump that we had to replace.
Had some miles though before we got it too, though.
Yeah, it was old when we got it. So
you must have used, 120 tons of concrete.
Let's see.
A lot of concrete.
See, how many miles do we use? In the printing the walls, definitely less.
And the foamcrete?
And the foamcrete.
I guess there's no.
The foamcrete we used 26 full pallets.
That doesn't go through the rotor stator.
It goes through a rotor stator on the batch
does?
plant.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's separate from the system we're using to mix and print the walls.
That rotor stator is rented, so that one's fine. And but that's also just cement and water, so that doesn't chew up the rotor stator like an aggregate does.
But the printed wall, do you know how many tons of concrete?
I can tell you right now if I can do the count. So we get
12. Do we use 12 pallets?
No, I got it in my notes. I've done this math so many times. At some point, I was like, I'm gonna write this thing down.
A pallet's what, like 1.2 tons?
Yeah, it's 3,500, I think.
Let's see.
All right, so like 1.8.
Something like that.
Wow, so you really have thin walls, and you're not using a ton of concrete.
No, it's.
And again, some of that is we're supplementing that a lot with the fly ash, which is we learned that pretty early on. An excellent supplement. When it gets wet, it sets like Portland. When that fly ash gets wet,
It gives you that toothpaste quality coming out too.
Well, yeah, coming out, it definitely helps with the plasticity of the mortar. Once it sets, though, it's like a rock. It's like shale when it hardens.
1,000 linear feet times 10 feet tall, and then times, was it 0.25 because I think it's 2,500 cubic feet in those walls of materials. So it's 2,500 cubic feet. That's 92 cubic yards. So a cubic yard's about a ton, I think. Isn't that right? I would think.
Yeah, I think it's like 1.2 tons.
Yeah, so 92. You're pretty close. 100. You said 120, right?
Yeah.
It's more like 92.
Still only, but I thought it was only 12 pallets for all that weight.
It was at least 12 pallets.
For the printing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
Well, only one rotor stator is great. So either you have the materials not wearing the rotor stator, I guess, that you're using as much.
The screening, we were very careful about screening, first of all. Like, because you can, when you buy that concrete sand, like they say, there's the aggregate's this size. If you actually screen it, you get these big rocks in there. It's always the big rocks. So that's, I think, what kills the rotostators. So it's a bit of a laborious process. Like we were putting it in buckets and dumping it into the screener to get all the rocks out of it, and into this hopper, and then the cement go in the hopper, and then it went up. So there's a better way to do that, I'm sure. But for now, that's what we were doing, and maybe that saved the rotostator.
Save some hoses too, probably.
Yeah, and I think Andrey had these rototators sourced from, I don't know, some far off place, so he was very particular about the types we were using. But they survived until the very end, and then that one, we had to replace that one in the mixer pump.
Yeah, it's a finicky part of the system, but very important, underrated.
About $500, I think, which, it's not that, when you're talking about a house, it's not that big a deal to replace.
That's cheaper than most of them.
Yeah, okay. Well, there you go. So it was about $500 to replace that one, and once you replaced it, it was fine.
Well, let's say you guys solve construction automation, it becomes 50% cheaper, 50% faster. What do you do next? After you print 1 million homes, you get the business running on its own, and your time's freed up.
I don't know.
Build a new Astrodome.
He wants to
Astrodome.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that's cool.
Right. I don't. I don't know. It's like I'm so kind of focused on making this work right now, and it's been fun, but it hasn't been easy. There's been a lot of all-nighters covered in concrete and stuff like that. I want to see that next big project. 10, 20, and then and we gotta. That's our big challenge now. We gotta graduate past the artisan nature of what we're doing and be able to scale it a little bit.
Maybe bring that forward with you a little bit too.
Yeah, right. That's our hope.
Yeah, cool. Are you guys hiring? You said you're always looking for smart people. Any particular role?
So what we want right now is another Danny.
What's wrong with this one? I like this Danny.
Yeah, it's because I got to get rid of him. He's been a pain in the ass.
You need to.
Day one, right? Like,
Danny needs Danny.
Complain.
Probably rightfully so. It's not easy.
We call it the rank of chucklehead in our organization. So
right.
You got to go from like a short pants to a chucklehead, because our architect came out one day to help us work, and he's wearing short pants, and so like ever since then he's been short pants. No, so we need someone like Danny that can learn to operate the machinery.
Doesn't need sleep.
Occasionally. So it can learn all aspects of the machinery, then has some other really cool talents to bring to the organization, like whether you're a structural engineer or we already have an architect, or plumber or something like that, but like just whip smart and like willing to work their tail off. Like I say, everyone in our company, different kind of construction, different kind of company, everyone in our company is going to have an equity stake. So like whether it's a tiny one or a big one, you're going to be part of it. So someone that is okay working all night, is okay potentially living on a trailer at a job site for a couple days at a time, or staying in a CD motel or something like that as we're trying to bulldog through a project. But also okay, well, I could also do like a pro forma, and I can help source a deal and help put together a deal, and maybe bring other some really unique skill, whether it's like an engineering skill or something like that, to the company. But like, do it all, because when we send these crews out, like I said, we want to be able to build a house. Someone who's interested in going out and building a house with 4 guys or girls. Like one of our best persons at Lake, I don't need to say that. But yeah, so like someone like that is who we're looking for.
What's the most challenging day so far that you can share with the podcast?
Oh man.
Take your
a
time.
couple of them. Yeah. I'll let Danny answer that one. He's
no.
One
that I can share? Okay,
I got
go ahead.
it. All right. So the last, so we needed to get the thing finished. We needed to finish printing. The last day of printing was supposed to be kind of like a celebratory thing, because we're going to finish tonight no matter what. And we were printing at night at that point because it was too hot. So we get out there, and that was the day we replaced the rotostator on the very last day because the thing just kept crapping out.
So you got a brand new rotostator.
So no, we had to replace it before we started. So we're taking that thing apart and replacing that. So we're behind. We didn't get started to pot.
Oh, you kept the sleeve and you replaced the rubber.
Yeah. So we didn't get
Saved
started
a little money
until
there.
Yeah. And the sleeves, it's a custom
half the
built
cost.
thing.
Yeah.
So we didn't get started till 11 or so at night, and then we just have people coming through to help us throughout that process and kind of celebrate with us. And, we had some beers out there and everything, but and Danny and I had been at this for 2 weeks, and Andrey had been at this 2 weeks. So we were feeling it, and so these people would come by and they come by and take one look, and they're like, I'm going home, screw this, everyone would come out and be like, I'm just gonna head on home and maybe come back and help you tomorrow. So we pushed through all night, and we had a sensor on the thing broke, so we were putting the level in by hand, so
at the 11th hour.
11th hour just to get it done. And then we get into 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the morning, and it's in the summer, it's starting to heat up, so we've been going all night, and then it gets to 10 o'clock, and now it's starting to get kind of boiling out.
Did you get Red Bulls at 7-Eleven?
Yeah, we were just slamming the Red Bulls, and of course it's just me and Danny and Andrey, because everyone else kind of our help fell asleep,
and there is no tomorrow.
Yeah,
shifts.
On his fun. Yeah, we catch a guy sleeping in the car. I'm like, come on, man, get out.
Another guy pass out in the chair in the middle of the job site.
Why was there such a hard deadline you had to meet?
It had to be done, man. There's no it was just this.
You
is
just
the
wanted
day
to
we're
get
gonna
it done.
finish. You got to finish it. If you stop, you got to clean the whole machine out again.
Yeah.
You lose an hour, and so anyway, get it done. And we're going to 10:30, and then 11 o'clock. Now it's getting on 100 degrees, and we finally finish, and then Andrey's now I gotta do lentils. So because once
you gotta do them.
Gotta do the lentils. You gotta pour the lentils in because they're not stable until you pour that concrete. So now we're it's noon, and we're lugging buckets of concrete and mortar up to pull in there, and then we're doing the misting. It was everyone, I wanted to throw up. And Andrey almost died, but it was cool. So that was the hardest day for me. But Danny probably had some similar frustrations.
That's up there, definitely. Yeah, it feels like a lot of our hardest days are right when we're at the finish line, because you're spent kind of at that point, and you can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
But there's all these unique problems, when you're dealing with
And they just keep popping up.
And they just do, as they do, and so a lot of our nights have been like that.
Oh, and
we're
was
getting
it
towards the end of something.
The reason why we had to finish that day is because we had a delay because we lost a bearing or something in the machine, and we had to order it, and then so now we lost 2 days while we're waiting for the bearing
and the wheel.
Yeah, so
it's always something.
It's always something. Yeah, look, as we grow as a company, we're gonna have a warehouse full of parts, and we're never gonna have to order everything off Amazon ever again. We'll order it to restock, but we're never gonna have to wait for it. But
that might be the most common piece of advice I get from teams is order 4 times more of every part than you need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and materials, same thing.
Yeah.
Especially
but the
if
materials
you're out more remote, like where we are.
They don't always have a great shelf life.
They don't always have a great shelf life, but some of the stuff it does behoove the team to keep on hand, because you can't always expect that someone's going to be able to deliver something that day or the next day. So and that's something we've gotten better at too as we've gone along. Related to your question about who would we like to hire. So if what we just described sounds like fun, that's the kind of person we want.
Yeah. Someone that like thinks it's funny.
Can go from like.
You gotta like look at that and like be able to laugh at it and be like, this is absurd.
It's worth the story.
Yeah, like it's worth the story. Like, like when you're like just like covered in concrete, it's in your eyebrows and like you're more concrete than person at that point. Like you just gotta look at it and say like, this is hilarious. Like this is what my life has become, and I think it's funny. That's the kind of person we need. So.
I live for those moments. I mean, sometimes when I'm trying to film a project, trying to get up to Canada, they don't let me in. I got to try again. It's like the hardest times are the reason that other people aren't doing the thing you're doing, and so that's why like you're doing the right thing.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah. So that type of person is who we're looking for.
They're out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean it's and when you're finished, it's more rewarding. It's like, hey, I got like my literal blood is in this house, so. So
is that the red dye?
Yeah, it's the red dye. It's like actual like human blood that got put in there.
Yeah.
I forgot to show you when we were there. There's a bug that's printed into the wall. It's kind of the coolest feature of the house. He's got a little hole where he's kind of looking out like his death. Stare.
The assassin bug that got you?
No, it was a different one.
Oh, okay.
Like just like an innocent bug that wasn't fast enough. But he's printed right in the wall.
That would have been something if you got the one that stung you and you.
I should know that he did. That one did go in the mixer. Actually.
Yeah, there's
nice.
It's open
Everyone got
season on
stung by
assassin
those.
bugs out there.
They get mixed right into the wall, so there's
right.
some of them in there. There's a little tequila in the mixer too. You kind of throw that in there like as a celebration at the end.
Yeah.
It's the best additive, I think.
Is ranch water popular in Houston, or is that an Austin thing?
It's getting popular.
It's a new thing.
Carbach makes a pretty decent range water.
I can't get over the name. It sounds like salad dressing to me, like mixed with water. And I was just like, I can't get over it.
I thought it was authentic. Like historically, the ranchers used to throw some tequila in the water.
That's
I don't
a
know.
brand new thing. Yeah.
That's what I assumed.
Oh, maybe.
Danny and I do go way back, and we have a tradition of like when you're really miserable, like in the heat when you're doing some kind of manual labor, you take a shot of tequila like out in the middle of a tarmac.
It's a good tradition.
Just and warm. Let it heat up all day, and then do that because it just makes it that much better.
Moving, shoveling.
Yeah.
Any kind of unrewarding manual.
Yeah.
Reward yourself by standing out in the middle of the sun and take a hot shot of tequila.
We defaulted to a bucket system, which that's not the way Andrey's system was designed. It had like a automatic. It came with an automatic, weight sensor and an automatic water sensor, and then we're like the buckets are easier, and he's like whatever you want to do, and so we got to get a little more high tech.
What had the sensors on it?
The trough has a sensor to when it gets to a certain weight
of the mixer pump system.
The dry mixing system has a weight sensor, so it was a little low tech towards the end, just buckets, buckets of dry mix into the wet mix, into the water, into the thing. But still only 3 people, so as long as you can keep it under 3 people, whatever is most efficient, it's most efficient.
Agreed.
True.
So when we're working with our other kind of partners, kind of bring some of that to it. Like you guys may be overthinking this little part, like you're automating a part that's like doesn't necessarily need to be automated. It's faster just to do it, sometimes.
Especially when you're getting started, and there's something to be said for if you're handling the material closely, then you have more control over the parameters.
That's right.
Yeah, and you learn it, we're still learning, so I mean, you get like a really kind of in-depth, and we're all concrete scientists now, or maybe concrete artists is the better word, I don't know, but like...
and a half a dozen other new jobs you had to learn to be able to 3D print a house.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, in some stuff you just have to kind of like do what makes sense, just kind of use some common sense about it, and we had a great structural engineer, and he's very flexible, so we run everything by him, but there's something to be said for looking at something and saying that looks really strong, if we do it that way, I think this is gonna be really strong, and then calling up the structural engineer and saying, hey, I want to do the rebar this way, and saying whatever, because his standpoint's always like, you guys have foot thick concrete walls and you're building a house, it's okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, cool. What are you guys doing for marketing? Are you taking a lot of footage of the work you're doing, social media?
We do have a lot of footage.
You got to post it.
Yeah, we're yeah. So I think we made one of our first posts the other day.
Nice.
But I think that we've kind of been playing kind of close to the chest up till.
Yeah, I mean, you got all the funding
fairly
you
recently.
need. You're not looking for
That's right.
clients or anything, but it's always good posting. At some point, you'll want to do something with an audience that.
I'm always looking for clients. Like so we have a lot of people that want to do cool stuff, but like there's always something cool out there.
It's tough with this industry because so many people saw the $10,000 3D printed house
Yeah,
video.
right.
A lot of companies, they'll say we have a 60,000 person waiting list, but how many of those people are expecting a $10,000 house?
Right.
A lot of them.
That's a question. Like I don't know. I saw. Like I want to ask you.
Sure.
Since you know more. I know probably about as much as the industry as I've learned from watching your podcast. So I go right to the source with it. It's like, in your opinion, like where are all the houses? It's been around now what, like 5-6 years? But is it that they're all just like coming and they're all going to jump on us right now, or is there something that's like a misconception out there? What's the
Well,
what's the
first
answer to that
off,
question?
I think there's more intelligence in my podcast than there is in me because people say things that I don't always absorb 100%. So there's more information just in general in the podcast episodes than I've captured probably. But I think my sentiment is that it's not yet cheaper. So the people aren't diving in head first, but there is a huge increase in the number of projects, and there's dramatic improvements in layer quality, team cohesion, the level of stress on the job site, how prepared people are to handle the different issues that always do come up. So I'm seeing rapid improvement, which keeps me motivated to stick with it and keep covering companies, because I have no doubt that construction automation is going to be the future. In some way or shape or form, technology is going to find its way into construction.
Right.
And the groups that know how to bring it on site, like you guys are doing now, working with robots on a job site, the skills are going to be transferable, whether it's a 3D printer or a Tesla pod or some other robot, whatever the machine is. You can't stop automation.
Yeah. No, it was funny. I had a really slick investor presentation I was giving, and my opening was it was for a company that did manufacturing, and I was like, and they had a very rich company history about moving from hand to automation, and I was like, I went through their company history in that process, and I said, way back in 1822, when this first person was making his first thing by hand, there was someone nearby him that was nailing boards together to build a house, and sitting here today in this meeting, there's someone nearby us that is nailing boards together to build a house, So you guys have progressed. Every other industry in the world, the chairs we're sitting in, the tables were, have our drinks on. This was built at some level of automation. But the house, for some reason, is still a hand-built process, more or less. So that's got to change. So I agree with that. But, I don't... I guess I can see how maybe it's not cheaper. But to me, when I looked at the materials that we used and we spent, the materials are cheaper. And we did it with less people. And maybe it took about the same amount of time. I don't know how much time we saved. Although a custom builder in the area is going to tell you a year, and they're not going to be able to make a year right now in this environment. So we're under 9 months, even from start to finish. So we're doing okay.
I don't doubt what you're saying at all. I just have seen enough projects to know that the skill that you've developed is worth more than the numbers that you put in.
Right.
And
maybe what we're doing is not necessarily like can be scalable without
exactly
a lot of
cheaper at scale
ultimately without making some advancements of our own. But
maybe it is. I mean, at that point will come that it's cheaper. So we're not going to know until after the fact.
Yeah.
So it could be now. It could be next year. It could be, who knows?
Yeah. No, that's right. I think it's awfully close. I mean, because when I was looking where the promise is, okay, if the materials were more expensive, then that's a brick wall. You can't ever get over that, right? So, I guess you could save on the labor side, but And that is the case with a lot of systems out there. The materials are more expensive because you have the premixes, that are $500 a cubic yard. So, but if you can solve that, then you're using your cheaper materials. The materials are cheaper, then like is the labor more? And I don't think so. Like I don't know. I don't know. I feel like we track the cost. I feel like we are cheaper, at least for this house. And if we're cheaper for this house, the very first one we done, then certainly we'll be cheaper for our next one. But stay tuned, like maybe, like the next thing we're going to do 10 of them. And, I don't know, like if we can't do it cheaper, we're not going to make any money because that's what we're selling them for.
The physical labor aspect is no doubt easier, but there's an added intellect or training
Sure.
that isn't required to do brick and mortar.
Yeah. No, that's right. That's right. And I think, that's maybe an organizational issue, like by having a company where everyone's a partner and everyone's kind of mission driven and into it, like you're able to get these people that can like be these 5-tool players and keep it in house and go out and do this as a group and a crew. Maybe that's something that helps. With that situation. To where your traditional home builder wants to go out and hire a bunch of subcontractors, and that's the other thing. Like in traditional building a house, which I've done, you stack all these margins on top of each other. Everyone out there's got to have a margin.
Yeah.
Right. So you compress the people, you compress the margins. Like how some of these technology companies were approaching building a 3D house. If you're just gonna be like another subcontractor in the process, then like you don't get much cost savings. You're bringing in your machinery and all your capex and now I'm gonna be the person that does the walls, but I've got another developer that's in charge of the whole project, and then he's got to have a margin and I've got to have a margin, and sometimes it doesn't work maybe, or it's harder to put that deal together. Whereas if you're kind of joint venturing or partners in the whole deal, there's less mouths to feed in that process maybe.
Yeah, the less people you have on the job site, more cost effective, less margin, less middlemen.
Yeah. So who knows? We'll see. I mean, like I said, the only way to do it for one house is to do it for one house, and the only way to ever do it for 10 houses is to do it for 10 houses. And we don't have the giant pot of money to like not be able to be able to afford to not make money on these things.
Yeah, you will see.
Yeah, right. We'll see. We're gonna get this house finished, more or less on budget. So that's been at least some proof of concept.
Yeah, and it's not hard to argue that it deserves some premium for a lot of the details you guys put in, especially as an Airbnb. You can, as a short-term rental, it'll be a good case study for generating an ROI from a 3D printed house.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's been done yet.
I don't know. I mean, I know that, like I say, when we have hard bids on everything to finish the house. Like I say, we're sticking on budget pretty good. Good margin on the house. I think you're right. I mean, you don't necessarily. I like to compare it to traditional construction. You don't really need to.
Yeah.
The question is whether it's going to make money or not. The question is whether I can build a house for. If I can sell a house for $600,000, can I build it for significantly less than $600,000 to make money on it and cover all the overhead? The answer to that is absolutely yes. For this project anyway. Maybe that was a 2021 market thing where it was crazy.
Once you get to 80 homes, then you want to be maybe cost competitive, more cost competitive.
Yeah. But I don't know. We've tracked the expenses pretty closely, and I think we're tracking a lot lower than what it costs to hire a bunch of substitutes.
Maybe not even at 80, but at 80,000 certainly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll retire long before we build 80,000 houses. Someone else can change the world,
All right.
But we'll get it. We'll get a lot of them in the ground. I really want, like, by the end of 2023, we want to have 30 houses in the ground.
That's a lot of homes.
They're little, but
1,000 square feet.
20 to 30. So like the round top, units. These are little Airbnb units. They're basically self-contained apartments, basically. So there's 600 square feet or so. There's 10 of those. And then Marfa, we got between 10 and 20. So, but at the end of 2023, if we've got between that 20 and 30 done, then we'll have 30 houses done. And, you know, I mean...
That'd be tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, Lennar may or may not have 100, I don't know, you know, but after you go past that, you know, who else is out there that's done that many? I don't know.
Yeah, Winsun's done a lot of printing, but I don't know what they've been up to lately.
Yeah. So we'll stay stateside because, you know, who knows about about Winsun and stuff like that. That's a kind of a, can't find much information about what they do, can you? Or
No.
I can't anyway.
It's all like Chinese news networks from 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
For the most part.
They were like, there was some bridge or something like that. They were going to
Yeah, they did a couple bridges.
Or...
And there's other 3D printed construction companies in China now.
Yeah.
Washing Tengda and Guangli or something like that.
Yeah.
But Winsun hasn't. They definitely toned down their operations.
Really?
From when they initially invested a ton of money. But America's where it's happening right now.
Really?
For 3D printed construction, it seems like.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like Texas should blow up.
It is.
Because of the builder friendly, you know, environment where, you know, like when I was first starting this a year ago, you know, people were kind of surprised by it when I was saying, like, they were like, well, what about building codes? What about this? And it's like, yeah, it's not something we have to worry about necessarily.
It's unique.
It's unique, you know, and so, I mean, that was one thing, you know, like we could drive an hour outside the city and be able to put a house down without having to go through some long permitting process for it. That's fairly unique from what I've seen. But yeah, people were really wrapped around the axle on it, you know, in a lot of places. I mean, I talked to a good associate in Europe, and, you know, we talked for an hour, and he's just someone who's really well connected in the industry. I was like, well, why haven't you really into this? Why haven't you built houses? Yeah, and he said, well, we tried, you know, this project failed in permitting, and this project failed in permitting, and I'm just like, wow, that's rough, you know, like, I mean, I'm even frustrated with how much stuff we have to go through in the U.S., but it's like, I mean, I've been, you know, taking deep dives into building codes for a long time, you know, as an attorney, I've, you know, litigated those issues, and it's so frustrating to me, some of the crap that's in there, you know, because I take, for example, the electrical code. You know, there's a lot of stuff in there that's safety based, and that's great. There's a lot of stuff in there that's just like convenience based. You know, like if you have a balcony, you've got to have a plug every 4 feet, you know, along your balcony. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but it probably is because at some point someone thought like they might want a lamp up there or something like that. You know, and so like from the consumer standpoint, it's like you're going to force people to put 4 plugs up along their balcony. There's a consumer out there that may want that. There's a consumer that may say, I want to save that $500, you know, and we're not giving that person that choice. We're requiring them to have those 4 plugs up there. And then, like, as these things evolve over time, it's an additive process. Like, every year, some electrician somewhere says, like, hey, we need our plug, you know, a plug next to the bed that's 4 feet up so you can plug your chargers in. Yeah. I was like, great idea. That's great for people, you know? So you add that. Then the next year someone says, like, now we need this. So you add that. And then over time, you just add and add and add and add and add. And you end up with this monster of a code that's really expensive to build because you're just adding stuff. You're never taking anything away, you know? You're never looking at cost. And so you wonder why things are so expensive to build. It's because, like, every code is like that. You're always adding this and adding that. You know, like, I mean, I saw right now in Virginia right now they're talking about bird safe glass in houses. You know, like we want to add bird safe glass. You know, it's like
that's crazy.
It's a cool thing for
what is
people.
Birds? They fly into it and it doesn't kill
them.
It's
like reflective.
They don't fly into it. Okay.
Yeah, it's like reflective, so they don't fly into it. That's a cool thing for people that like birds. You know, like you can buy bird safe glass, but now we're going to require everyone to have bird safe glass. You know, and it hasn't passed yet.
What happened to bird evolution?
Right. Yeah. Like we're really doing the birds a favor, right? By like teaching them hard lessons.
Maybe our kids' bird houses will have less birds flying into it.
Right. So it's just stuff like that like just keeps getting added and added and added, and then you wake up one day and you're like, we can't build affordable houses. You know, it's like, well, you know, like we went from 4 walls and a roof to like all this stuff that like someone may want to buy it, but don't make everyone buy it if they don't want it, kind of thing.
Nuke the code. I like it.
Yeah, just nuke the code. You know, have some basic performance requirements. That's the other thing about building codes. They're not performance based. They're not like your house must have this much wind shear resistance or this much energy efficiency. It's like your stud has to go here, and your next stud has to go here, and your cinder block has to go here. And, you know, so they're real specific as far as how you build stuff. And it's like when you got something new, you're gonna like make a whole appendix for it now. You know, and said it's not that bad in Houston. Like, well, we're talking to the city about stuff, and they're like, look, you got a structural engineer. He says it's okay. We're gonna be okay with it. But it's still a process you have to go through. It's kind of irritating. And in other places, it's a lot worse, I bet. You know,
Yeah.
hard to. And there's some industry capture you got to worry about. You know, like you have a lot of tradespeople saying that like it's so easy for a union trades representative to go in there and say like you can't do it that way. It's unsafe. You know, the only way to do it is our way because this is what we're trained to do.
And there's a handful of people that can do that. I mean, there was a project in Louisiana where the fire marshal shut them down. They didn't like the sprinkler system.
Yeah.
Is a concrete home? It's worse. It's going to burn. But
Right. Well, let's let people take their own risk on this. You know, as long as the information is there for the consumer and they can say like, I know what I'm buying. I understand, you know, like that it doesn't have this or that or the other, but I'm choosing to buy it because I think it's better, you know, or
leave a little room open for experimentation.
yeah. I don't know. That's a bit of a soapbox. I'm sure I'll bang my head up against that at some point, but right now we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that was good planning.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, we got a lot of good topics covered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything we left out?
We talked about the assassin bugs.
Talked about the assassin bugs, the scorpions.
Scorpions,
Got bit by. Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Jared. Appreciate it.